little backtesting trade recap. Um, so I took one trade on this day. It was this long, and it was a win. So I want to get into that right quick. So going into this particular day, I was somewhat neutral biased. I could see the potential for both longs and shorts. So we're at all-time highs, so that automatically makes me somewhat bullish. And then we also have a bullish SMT at this daily intermediate low. So you can see this low that's resting inside of this daily imbalance. ES ends up sweeping this out. NQ does not. So this is that low right here. ES takes it out. NQ does not. So there's a bullish SMT on the 4 hour. But the reason that I was potentially looking for shorts is because at market open here, we had not yet tapped into this untapped bearish 15-minute imbalance. And then I also recognized relative equal lows that were also a 1 hour intermediate low. So if you go to the 1 hour time frame here, hang on, let me take the executions off right quick. If you go to the 1 hour time frame, you can see these relative equal lows right here that are resting inside of this 1 hour fair value gap. So there's a 1 hour untapped fair value gap here with relative equal lows. So this is where I was looking at for potential targets for shorts. So at market open here, we get an immediate 1 minute inverse fair value gap here. So this is 8:30, and the market sells off, and we inverse this fair value gap. We also get a 1 minute change in the state. Now I do not take this short. Why do I not take this short? Because there is no manipulation at the high. So notice this high here never gets taken out by the 8:30 candle. So we're basically just generating buy side liquidity up here, which tells me this is more than likely going to be a manipulation. So I did not take this 1 minute inverse. I'm just waiting, and we get bought up. We start chopping around. This here looked like there was potential to be a short, but notice there was no inverse for value gap here on the 5 minute. 3 minute had an inverse, but by the time that closed, essentially here, this is where that 3 minute candle closed here. This is just a bad fill, and I was looking for a potential rebalance. Like at this point in time, basically, this is where the 3 minute candle closed and inverted this 3 minute imbalance. So I was like, okay, if I'm going to take this short, I would like to see a rebalance to this 1 minute fair value gap. So we continue to sell, don't get the rebalance, and then 9 a.m. news comes here, and then we just explode to the upside, obviously negating any type of short towards these relative equal lows. So once 9 a.m. news comes in here, and then this fair value gap holds bullish, and we continue to trade higher, that tells me that we are not going to these lows. Like even though there's still sell side liquidity here, the market is trading away from this, displacing through these levels, telling me that we do not want to go here. So at this point in time, I'm like, okay, we're probably going to be bullish here. So the market just continues to trend higher. We're displacing through everything, literally just trading higher straight through this 15-minute, turning this bearish imbalance to an inverse. And then on the 15-minute time frame, as you can see, we end up opening this bullish 15-minute imbalance right here. So notice, look lower. There's like a tiny fair value gap right here, 15 on the 15-minute. But this is the main imbalance on the 15-minute. And I see this open up, and I'm like, okay, if we can get into this, hold this bullish, then I can look to take an inverse targeting this 15-minute intermediate high. Because notice if you zoom out on the price leg, as you can see, this has just been ran through. We have an SMT at this daily intermediate low. So SMT on the bigger time frame, the market's displacing higher. That tells me the drawn liquidity is some form of buy side. Now, what is the next form of buy side liquidity at this point in time? Before this has happened, what is the next form? It's simply this 15-minute intermediate high. So I'm not overcomplicating things. I'm just looking at the next form of buy side liquidity, which is the high that is resting inside of this 15-minute bearish fair value gap. So this becomes my new drawn liquidity as soon as I see that we're not going to these relative equal lows because the market's displacing higher. And when I see this 15-minute fair value gap open up bullish, I wait for a rebalance to it to see if we can potentially look to take a long from the reaction of this 15-minute imbalance. So this right here, this rebalance that we get to this 15-minute fair value gap, is the exact type of rebalance that you want to see if you're potentially looking to take a long. Now, why do I say that? Because notice, the market's not just putting in a high here and then immediately dumping with, one or two quick volatile candles to rebalance to the 15-minute. We're showing a hesitation to want to go lower. The market's showing a hesitation to want to just sell straight off because notice we're generating highs here. What is this right here? This is an internal market maker buy model where we generate liquidity at the highs. we sell off into some form of key level. Now, what is the key level that we're selling off into? This 15-minute fair value gap, because notice the market beautifully taps this by just a single point. And then if we go to ES, as you can see, if we go to the 1 minute on ES, this low here ends up sweeping out this first set of lows on this low resistance liquidity run on ES. But notice this set here is this low on NQ. It doesn't get taken out. So bullish SMT gets put in inside of a higher time frame key level. And now, like I always say, the SMT itself is not the only thing I'm focused on. What's more important than this is the reaction. So I'm waiting to see what is the reaction of this SMT. Well, we get this 1 minute inverse for value gap here with this candle, but what I'm looking at is the 30-second, where we get this beautiful 30-second inverse. So 30-second bearish imbalance, we tap into these. I really like all of these wicks here. We're selling off and then just getting bought all the way back up. So these are nice rejection blocks. Then the reaction of this SMT from the 15-minute fair value gap is the market getting displacement higher. We close above this 30-second bearish imbalance. This is where I take my long here. As you can see on the executions, I take my long here. Once, I don't know why this happens sometimes, but it's literally one arrow for every single contract I took. But yeah, this is where I take my long after this 30-second inverse. And this is your low-hanging fruit here. This is where I'm like, okay, the market's definitely going here once we get this inverse. However, I don't take my position off here. I simply just go break even. The reason that is because this is the internal model. Okay, this is the internal market maker buy model. It's a very nice model. But if you zoom out to the 15-minute, look at this. Hang on, let me once again take off the executions. If we're on the 15-minute, and we see that the market's displacing higher, telling us that we don't want to go to these relative equal lows. We open up this 15-minute bullish for value gap. This holds bullish, and then we displace higher. Do you think that the market's going to sweep this small little internal high and then dump all the way down back to these lows? No, of course not. We're like, when this holds bullish, that tells me that the market, the 15-minute time frame, wants the next form of buy side liquidity, right? When this 15-minute fair value gap holds bullish, that tells me that this time frame wants the next form of buy side. What is the next form of buy side? This intermediate high. So instead of taking my full position off at this internal high, I move my stop from the bottom of these wicks here to break even. So this is my break even point, and then I let the rest of the position run towards the 15-minute intermediate high. So yeah, really clean trade. This is a nice, really nice continuation model, and this is a nice example of how you can take trades when there hasn't necessarily been like manipulation at the lows. Because like, so sometimes like I know a lot of people that trade these concepts would negate this setup simply because all of this generated sell side here down here. But it's very important, like I always say, to pay attention to displacement in the market, because it will tell you so much. Like when you see the market simply trading through this 15-minute imbalance, showing us that we don't want to hold this bearish, and the 5-minute time frame is just displacing higher, even leaving this 5-minute breakaway. We're not even bearish enough to come rebalance to a 5-minute untapped for value gap. When you see this huge move higher, you can't just negate a beautiful setup because of these stacked lows. Like, it's clear that the market's going to some form of buy side liquidity. Because I mean, we know we certainly didn't reject this. So where might we reject after? We might reject somewhere up here after we take out buy side liquidity, being the 15-minute intermediate high. So yeah, really clean trade on this backtesting session.